Dear all, good morning or good afternoon. We're very pleased to see so many of you and more are connecting at this specific moment. I'm Theodora Xenogianni from the OECD, and I'm really pleased to welcome you to this fifth and last event in the series of thematic workshops that we organize on PES reforms. These are organized by the OECD, by WAPES, the European Commission's Directorate-General for Structural Reform Support, and France Travail. This specific event will focus on the role of public employment services in responding to the global megatrends, such as aging, globalization, the twin digital and green transitions, the global energy crisis, and potentially more such events that we may face in the future, which will have an impact on labor markets and on the needs that public employment services will have to address. So active labor market policies and public employment services across the EU and OECD and many other countries have a very important role to play in identifying and addressing skill shortages, supporting job matching, and then minimizing also the risk of unemployment and long-term unemployment. In order to be able to fulfill this role, the countries need to be well prepared in order to act in agile and effective ways. Let's now think not so far ago about the COVID-19 crisis. It seems quite a distant past, but was certainly a very challenging period for many public employment services across the world. So back then, we asked the EU and OECD countries to identify the features of their systems that allow them to respond in an agile and effective manner to the huge changes that were brought by the pandemic, both to the labor markets, but also to the operation of public employment services. Let me just highlight two of the features that were identified back then. First was the flexible organizational setup of ALMP provision and flexible regulation. And the second, very important, was stakeholder engagement and tight and good cooperation between the actors in the ecosystem of public employment services. So today we'll move on to see what seems to be the next challenges and hear about the recent efforts of public employment services to anticipate change, to identify labor market needs, to identify ways to deliver good services to job seekers, workers, and employers in this context, and also cooperate effectively with all the other stakeholders. So a couple of things we will be focusing on. The first is basically information about labor market needs as early as possible, as timely as possible. Second is information identification of needs among people who are employed and also employers, so that PES can target its interventions to promote job-to-job transitions. Next, we will see what the role of public employment services is in supporting the green and the digital transitions. And finally, we will talk more generally about the challenges that PES face in addressing these emerging and ongoing transformations in the labor market. Without further ado, I would like to welcome our speaker, Chua Mini, who is Director of the Strategic Planning Division in Workforce Singapore. This is the PES of Singapore. Mini will tell us what Workforce Singapore is doing in this specific area, how they anticipate challenge, and how they are able to provide good and effective services to job seekers, to workers and employers in this landscape of big changes. Mini, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Theodora, and thank you to WAPES and OECD for inviting us to share more about how the public employment service in Singapore, we are known as Workforce Singapore, takes a much more proactive stand as much as we can to stem the future rising tide of structural unemployment. Given the global trends, megatrends that we see, I thought perhaps what might be helpful would be to look into some background information about Singapore's workforce at slide 8, if I may trouble colleagues to show that. at slide 8.
Yep.
Yeah. So Singapore's workforce is not a very large workforce. The total labor force that we have from 2023 numbers is about 3.9 million, and of which our resident labor force is about 2.4 million. Uh, as with what we are seeing globally, we are facing an aging workforce that is increasingly top heavy, with 60 and over becoming a ballooning group for us. And in this sense, we are very exposed to the problems and the challenges of an aging population ahead, I think, of many of our European counterparts and other countries in the rest of the world. But we have been very fortunate to have a high resident employment rate of 82.6%, and correspondingly a low resident unemployment rate of about 2.7%. And this has been consistent for us even throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, rising only to a high of 4.4. And even taking into account the entirety of the whole labor force, and if you look at our employment rate for those aged 16 and above, that is actually 68%. So we've kept our economy extremely competitive. If you take a look at slide 9, we are ranked as the most competitive economy in 2024 by IMD. But we don't rest on our laurels in this case, because we know that Singapore, just as with other countries in the world, we will face greater challenges in the road ahead, with the way that the megatrends have come across. So if I may trouble us to go to slide 2. We are a small city state, and very aware that as a small city state, our exposure to global macro trends is in fact unbuffered. We are a tiny country of only about 710 square kilometers wide. And what it means is that in a very service-oriented, open global market economy, um, we are exposed to greater economic volatility. So, and with when technological change arrives, uh, it is quite quickly adopted by the businesses that are here locally. Our our local businesses and people are almost immediately affected by new technology, by new developments in the geopolitical space. And Singaporeans will increasingly face shorter skill cycles. And what it means is that even though we have such a stable employment rate and a competitive economy, we will see a more frequent cycle of job displacements due to skills obsolescence. We will, and more of our people will find that there's greater volatility in their career, and there's a need to plan ahead for more frequent career transitions. And companies that are here locally, we are an SME rich employment landscape here in Singapore. So many of our companies are small to medium sized enterprises, and they employ around 70% of our workforce. The companies here would have to proactively think ahead about how do we redesign jobs given the onslaught of new technological changes, especially with generative AI, especially with sustainability being a very important megatrend ahead of us. And in fact, here with us, and we have to think through how decarbonization and systematic risk assessments would change in the way that businesses approach their work. In that sense, companies would need to be a lot more proactive in their workforce planning and development. And we have a perfect storm in the sense that we've said that we have an aging population. So in addition to shorter skill cycles, greater volatility, a need for companies to think about their jobs and their workforce planning, our demographics are not in our favor. We have 1 in 4 Singaporeans projected to be 65 and above by 2030. Our birth rates are not getting higher. A very natural trend that has been seen also across many much more developed economies around the world. And we will see slower workforce growth. I've mentioned that we are a tiny country, so there are limits on the number of foreign workers that we can welcome to Singapore as well. So this provides us with no further inject of labor in the sense of much greater limitations in terms of the number and also the type of foreign workers that we would be able to bring in to complement the local workforce. And so if we go on to slide 3, this shows us what WSG, the Workforce Singapore, does in order to support our workforce. And traditionally, we have divided our basket of work into 2 areas, frictional and structural unemployment. We were formed in 2016, arising from a reformulation of our previous agency, Workforce Development Agency. And we have a focus on job placements. And traditionally, that is the focus of all public employment services around the world. You look at the vulnerably employed, the unemployed, they are in most acute need of the help of a public employment service. But we have also always found employers to be the other side of the coin, a very important partner in this effort. And we have engaged employers to also redesign jobs and to place and train workers that face skills mismatch. So over at the side of frictional unemployment, we have initiatives like career matching services. And in addition to physical centers where we have matched individuals that walk in or make appointments, there are also online digital services provided in the My Careers Future online job portal. And we also have a bevy of volunteer career advisors, over 500 of them to date, who are veterans in their respective industry fields. And they receive training from WSG to offer peer-to-peer informal mentoring and advice. So this addresses as much as we can the frictional unemployment that we see in Singapore, and we place around 55,000 a year. But the harder task is actually in the area of structural unemployment, because that's where their expectations mismatch, wages expectation and difference in the expectations for wages as well as for skills. And we have in place to address this about 100 career conversion programs over 30 sectors. And we also pair this with support under a grant, which is the job redesign support that is under Productivity Solutions Grant. And this helps companies to take on both job redesign as well as to hire imperfect matches from the job market. And through the modality of place and train, they would bring in workers, new hires that are imperfect fits, train them, see the delta for which there is some additional skills that they would need, invest in that training. And the government steps in with up to 90% of salary support in this case, so that we ease and we facilitate the transition that is necessary in structural unemployment. In this case, we bring the worker along when there are growth jobs within companies, but imperfect matches in the job market, because then it makes the salary support makes it a lot easier for employers to say yes to the imperfect fit. And we have recently also rolled out the job redesign modality. It was originally conceptualized for at-risk jobs. So for existing hires that are already within the company, there was salary support as well from us if they were to redesign those existing jobs and this at-risk jobs, and bring these workers into areas that were not at risk. But now we have also expanded this modality to include jobs that are in growth areas. So regardless of whether it is an anticipated at-risk job, as long as the job is being proactively converted into a growth area that is under our jobs transformation maps, that would be supported through our career conversion program salary support scheme. So these are efforts that are targeted at employers. And to date, we have about 17 jobs transformation maps. If we go on to the fourth slide on this. The jobs transformation maps are our proactive tool within the job market space. our own economic agencies under the Ministry of Trade and Industry, as well as other sector leads, have developed what we call the industry transformation maps, covering quite a number of sectors. They have covered about 80% of GDP across 23 industries in Singapore. And these industry transformation maps proactively anticipate in all these 23 industries how these areas will transform. And the industry transformation maps were rolled out in 2016. And so progressively over time, the different maps were completed and have been largely completed to date. And what Workforce Singapore did was to come into this space and support the sector agencies, as well as bring in consultants and partners within the industry to develop an accompanying jobs transformation map. So the fact of the matter is that industries can and will transform in response to the megatrends of AIs and sustainability, but they may do so without thinking about where jobs will change in a very clear sense. They know how the industry might transform and what developments will take place, but how will that labor structure be transformed and how will individual job roles be impacted? That granular detail is something that we have gone to great lengths to provide. And I invite you to take out your own individual mobiles and to scan the QR code on this slide. In this website link, you will find a list of all the jobs transformation maps that we have developed to date, covering over 60% of the resident workforce. And the latest that we have done is the JTM, our jobs transformation map in sustainable finance, where you would see how we have analyzed the way that roles in the finance industry are impacted by the megatrend of sustainability. And in the works, of course, would be JTMs on air transport, which was deeply affected also by the COVID-19 pandemic. And there's still many, many developments in that space, as well as the impact of generative AI. And as first seen, I think, in the financial services sector, but not limited to that in due course. So the jobs transformation maps is a very key proactive tool for us. It helps us to it informs at the very baseline how we encourage job redesign and reskilling. Because you can encourage your workforce to take up lifelong learning and to develop skills, but to what end? And you need to do that in order to meet the jobs of the future. And that's where the jobs transformation maps has really helped us out. We had two examples on this slide, and we mentioned the financial services JTM, which was completed in 2019. And in here, we found that highly impacted job roles were identified, and that was about 10,000 workers out of the 160,000 local workers in the sector. And then targets could be set, knowing exactly the scale at which you had to work to reskill and redeploy these impacted workers. So this translated to real actionables by the key sector agencies, as well as the Institute of Banking and Finance in Singapore. And we were able to roll out relevant programs that targeted the right training outcomes and employment outcomes for individuals. So this was also very helpful in that way. And onwards to the 2024 Sustainable Finance Jobs Transformation Maps, this would impact 50,000 professionals where they see sustainable finance-related tasks being added to their jobs. And in that sense, there's a need for these more than 50,000 professionals to be ready for this change, for this transformation. And the map sets out for them how they might then do that upskilling. And we also identified how new job roles will emerge and also the 20 unique job roles that are high priority areas for upskilling. So these are the examples of what Workforce Singapore has done in this area. We have also talked about our flagship program in helping career conversion, the career conversion programs. And ultimately, the people that we need to help are not just those who are vulnerable today and those who are unemployed, but employed individuals who need to proactively move ahead into new growth job areas, into redesigned job roles. And our career conversion programs are a key lever for us to do this. where we support companies to reskill mid-career workers, especially who may have been out of the education system for some time and may have been out of reskilling for some time. And so this helps them to grow into new growth job roles, to new redesigned roles. They get industry recognized training, they get salary support. And I've highlighted an example here where sustainability professionals are in demand, is a role that's in demand and would be helped along by a career conversion program in this area. So to help companies also proactively transform, they would have their trainees, they will have their hires and undergo whitelisted sustainability related training programs. There's also structured on the job training and mentorship. And sector agencies are a big partner in this effort. With the Workforce Singapore, and indeed no public employment service does this alone. We do this in partnership with across all of government, as well as with industry partners, because employers are at the end game of this, helping us to put our workers into jobs. And with that, I conclude the presentation.
Thank you so much, Minnie, for this fascinating presentation. Many interesting things going on and many more that you didn't really present today, but maybe we'll have the opportunity to hear about another day. Now I have the pleasure to welcome Anne Loringson, my colleague that many of you know, who will actually moderate the discussion. Anne, the floor is yours.
Your microphone.
Is it now better?
Yes.
Is it now working? Okay, thank you so much. It was additionally closed. Thank you so much for the presentation, and yeah, let's move on to the discussion. But even before the discussion, let's have a little poll among our participants to see how are you dealing with future-proofing the public employment services. And I asked Thierry to launch the poll.
Yes.
Is it?
Yes, you can see the poll in the conversation
chat
area. Yes, in the chat.
Okay, very good.
Yes.
So basically,
and you can vote and.
What we are asking is, what do you think are the key challenges for public employment services in addressing megatrends and the changing labor market needs? So is it that there is not enough information on the labor market needs, so you don't have enough information, for example, on what kind of skills are needed in the future? Is there just too much uncertainty about the future developments? Or is it difficult to take the future changes into account in policy design, or what the public employment service is planning in its strategies, or how the public employment service is implementing its policies? So basically you have the information, but it's really difficult to use it. Is it difficult to convince your clients, your partners, to take action? So job seekers, employees, employers. Is it the difficulties in implementing the whole of government approach? So convincing other stakeholders, maybe organizations in charge of education policies or other types of policies, or other challenges. So just write in the chat if you think it's something else. Maybe you don't find it at all challenging, but I doubt it. I think we are all struggling with this, and some things need to be overcome to really future-proof them, the public employment services, and help the labor market in going forward. So I hope the results are visible for everybody on the screen the same way. Well, you can keep voting. Yeah, the top ones at the moment are, well, uncertainty about the future developments. Indeed, there are a lot of forecasts available, so it seems there is information, but they're different. So how to know what kind of scenario will actually realize? And the whole of government approach, indeed. There are often strategies individually, but how to have a coordinated response is another question. Minnie, what do you think? How does this resonate with your experience?
Very much so. Actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about this part on too much uncertainty about future developments. Indeed, I think the difficulties that we have as government entities is that we are always lagging what the market sees, right? And no one has the right crystal ball. Do we track what venture capitalists are throwing their money into? What is the right way to do that prediction? By the time we discovered that, the care economy and green sustainability and AI is the next important area to upskill our people in, that has already happened. It's on our doorstep. And being able to take in how things will also change with different geopolitical circumstances is very difficult. And internally, something that I hadn't mentioned in the presentation, but the fact is that what we probably need to do with our people is to build their individual career resilience against the uncertainties of the world. In other words, to always have a plan B and C in your pocket, even while you are still employed. And to bring about this culture of career planning, to bring about this culture of thinking ahead, so that you gain a greater sense of control over your future despite that uncertainty. I think that's something that perhaps the public employment services around the world are also awakening to, this idea of encouraging greater career guidance well into adulthood, well into the time when you are healthily employed. And I thought that was something that that struck me as I saw the responses. That perhaps that is one way, by creating more informed, more rational, and more ready, future-ready individuals, ready to embrace uncertainty as a part of the way forward. Then we would collectively have a workforce more prepared to take on to take on uncertainty alongside the public employment service.
Thank you, Minnie. Just to also encourage everybody to post questions in the chat. I hope it is working. Jerry to confirm. But yeah, as we have also people from the French PES here, the French Travail, Sandrine and yeah, maybe Sandrine, would you like to take the question as well? What do you think about the results of the poll, or would you highlight any other challenge rather than even we presented in the poll?
Well, actually, what I wanted to say, I have a question, but maybe we can ask in a few minutes. It's I voted for the 43% response on the difficulties to implementing a whole of government approach together with other stakeholders, as the case in France. Just 1 minute, excuse me, I sent someone in my office. Sorry, we have a high school trainee and she wanted to ask me something. So excuse me. Yes, I was saying that this trend of a difficulty to have a global government approach aligned with all the stakeholders and all the players is it's an issue, and I'm kind of happy to see that we are not the only ones in France to face this issue as we are reforming our PES, and this is exactly at the core. This is the core topic, and we currently work, and we already used to work with different stakeholders and players to support job seekers and companies, but most of it more generally the job seekers. So we used to have quite a rich network, but we are trying to reorganize it and structure it so that it's easier for the job seeker to access to the right stakeholder, the right partner, and maybe have more efficient and less fragmented solutions. So it's very interesting to see that in the end we face the same mega trends from one country to another.
Thank you so much, Sandrine. Yeah, I think I personally can't write in the chat, so I hope it works for others. Maybe just because of as I'm presenter, but in any case, maybe changing a bit the topic. You talked a lot about cooperation with employers, and you have really developed really strong cooperation and dedicated services, and they are really central to the future proofing the labor market. Maybe you can say a bit how much time did it take to develop such a good cooperation and these kind of services, and maybe also where do you see yourself going in the future in vis-a-vis employers?
So it is indeed a very time-intensive and labor-intensive effort to develop cooperation of this level. We have a dedicated team of officers that engages the industry. So this points actually to also how structurally we are developed. Within governments, do we build also that culture of cooperation among ourselves and with our people, and by setting aside resources, people, our own people, to do that engagement with industry as well as across with other sector agencies, when you see it as their performance target to bring into play, to bring on board companies onto our programs, to have signing off with us other sector agencies who have skin in the game. That signals how much work and effort we are willing to put into the area of whole of government cooperation as well as with employers. And so we do have that very dedicated industry engagement, and every year we increase our targets to help us to and we more deeply we read through all the core reports that we have with employers. All of senior management takes a look at that and understands better what employers are looking for when we talk to them about their manpower solutioning issues. What are they facing? What are the ground realities that businesses are coming across? And that ground sensing and pulse informs us as to whether or not the programs that we have designed, they sound really good on paper. Do they actually work with employers, or are we constantly only selling our programs to the converted, and we're missing out on many opportunities across with employers that we have yet to engage. So every year we push our boundaries. I have to say it's hard going. Our officers find it very difficult work, but we press on and we recognize the importance that there is within this area.
Thank you. It's very impressive indeed what you do, and and also that you have the self-doubt that are we doing the right thing, and checking and acting upon it. It's indeed very important. Jean-Pierre or Sandrine, would you want to say anything regarding the France Travail in this regard? Where do you see the cooperation with employers in future-proofing the public employment service and the labor market?
Yes, actually, I asked the question in the chat, and I was writing another one. We, as I said, our PES is in an ongoing reform, deep and ambitious one. And regarding the services to employers, we are trying to transform and do differently. we are not in the same situation. So it's not easy to compare because our unemployment rate is quite high. Your employment rate is so low, it's just fascinating and seen from France, as we are at 7.3 or less, so it's quite high, even if it's much lower than it used to be in France, but it's still quite high. So it's not easy to compare. And when it comes to the services to employees, we are trying to change things and see how
No
to.
just nyt ei, mutta niin kuin vartti sitten tuli viimeksi.
Can you hear me? You can't hear me?
Should be fine now.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so I was saying that we are trying to accelerate recruitment so that we have kind of a paradox. On one side, we have so many recruitment needs, and we have a lot of shortages. And on the other hand, we have a lot of job seekers registered, France Travail, and even other people looking for a job and who are not registered as job seekers. So we have many job offers on one side and many people looking for a job on the other side. And the meeting, it doesn't match. We have a mismatch, and it's quite complex to see how to see how to adapt the skills and so on of the profiles to the recruitment needs. And we also try to see how maybe to make employers change their point of view and their criterion so that they can more easily hire vulnerable people. So it's quite complex, and this is what we are trying to do at the moment. But once again, it's not easy to compare with your situation. And by the way, I had one question, and I was wondering regarding your so low unemployment rate. Do you carry out actions to go out to people who are not registered as job seekers, but maybe who are looking for a job, but maybe who are not identified as job seekers, so that you as a PES can try to provide an increased workforce, potential workforce to the companies? If my question is clear, but I wanted to know if you have the job seekers registered as such, but do you have initiatives to identify other people who could maybe facilitate the recruitment and meet the employer's needs?
So I hope I've understood the question. I think it's outreach on two levels, right? So besides the proactive job seekers that come forward and look for us as a public employment service, what kind of outreach happens on our end? Is it targeted outreach to job seekers of certain segments? Is that what I'm understanding? The question, is that correct? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Please let me know if I haven't got it right.
Well, actually, I'd like to know how do you do. What is the reason for this so low unemployment rate? And secondly, how do you do to try to find an increased workforce so that you can have profiles to propose to the recruiters?
That is an amazing question. It is a huge question, to be very honest. It is. I could spend all day on this. So it starts actually. If I could go onto the life cycle of a job seeker, it starts right from the get-go when they are in school. So we have education and career guidance at every stage. It is true, it is difficult to get students to think about their future. If I can say that, they are thinking perhaps about their next stage, and often that at best is the next tertiary institution or secondary institution that they're headed to. And then at the point of graduation, all of our institutions, from the vocational school to the autonomous universities we have, are equipped with a career office to help them out. And we monitor the graduate employment outcomes very carefully for all the schools to see where they're going. Are they getting into employment? So right from the get-go, the young are looked at very, very carefully to see whether or not there are any employment issues that could put them off the track. And on the employer side, we have a system where there are where the government is notified in cooperation with the unions, the labor unions, whenever there are mass layoffs of a certain size. So for companies that do retrenchments of a certain size, there is a notification system that they have to submit paperwork for. And that galvanizes our entire system into order. So once we know that there are retrenchments of a certain size going on, uh, every effort is made to reach out immediately to the impacted workers, either through ourselves or through the unions. We would offer the service, everything that we've got, everything from our online job matching to job fairs to whatever networking that's necessary, of which a certain percentage take up our offer of service, and others lean back onto their own resources, as well as perhaps they could be doing self-help using our online resources. And that's the other thing that we had invested very heavily in. We have invested very, very heavily in the education of our workforce, which enables them to do two things. One is to enter higher value jobs, and the second is to increase their ability to self-help. So not just rely on the public employment service, but to have at their fingertips the access to very rich and organized online information about where the job opportunities are and where they can go, and what they can do to do simple things like beef up their resume, to where growth trajectories could be, if they were to enter a job of their choosing. So to give you an idea, what we have done is that the number of degree holders actually have really increased in Singapore. Just over the last 10 years, it's increased from 31.5% in 2013 to 42.4% in 2023. I would not be surprised if at one point we hit about half the population becoming degree holders. But what it does is that actually it is also true for, I think, for France and for many parts of the world. As the population gets more educated, the chances of them being able to self-help gets greater. And that's where if we have in place a large catchment of digital services that are very intuitive and easy to use, that helps them out in the first instance. And those who then need more help can be triaged and brought into the more labor-intensive services, the more resource-intensive services of individualized job matching, of more personalized coaching that would help them in their employment journey. So this partnership also, the partnership with the schools to manage employment outcomes, the partnership with companies to ensure that they are also mandated to work with us and to work with the unions to offer help to the individual workers. This is part of an entire network, and it's built also on a foundation of trust and understanding that the government and the public employment service is not out to get you. It's not out to be against your business success and fail you in helping the worker, but that it can all be a win-win. We can work towards that, where in the longer term, what we have is also going to help them access a wider talent pool. What we have is going to open up skills and be part of a collaborative picture of success for everybody.
Thank you so much. It was a very comprehensive answer, and I believe you could talk probably a whole day and teach us a lot about what the public employment service in Singapore does. But unfortunately, we have to close here, and I give the floor to Theodora for closing remarks.
Thank you, Anne. Big thanks to Mini for this super, super exciting presentation and discussion. Big thanks to Sandrine as well for bringing in elements from France Travail. And overall, a big thanks to the colleagues who cooperated with us in the organization of this series of thematic events. It was really a very nice journey. We learned a lot. The challenges are there. And I think that on all sides, WAPES, European Commission, OECD and France Travail, we will continue to monitor what is going on across OECD, EU and other countries. And we hope also to be able to evaluate some of these measures and some of these initiatives and activities that have taken place in recent years. Many thanks to the audience and many thanks to those who have attended also several of these events, and a great afternoon, evening, night to all of you. Bye-bye.